Morning, Chairperson. That's correct. We have got a quorum. I just think there's one or two of the.
Okay, yeah, let's just see quickly. Okay, fine. Good morning, colleagues and officials. My name is Derek America. I'm the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Local Government. Today is the 31st of August 2021. I wish you a hearty welcome to this meeting, and I'm very sure that we will have a very constructive meeting. The agenda for today's meeting is as follows. We will have a briefing by the department on the progress and implementation plan for the 2019 and 2020 MFMA audit outcomes and the corrective measures that the department intend to implement underperforming municipalities in the Western Cape. And thereafter we will consider and adopt minutes of previous meetings, and then lastly we will have resolutions that may emanate from the presentation that we will hear today. So allow me to call on members who are present on the platform just to establish whether we have a quorum to proceed with the meeting, to introduce themselves, and then we will take it from there. Over to the members.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chairperson. My name is Matlodi Maseko, and I'm the member of this standing committee.
Good morning, Chair. Andrikus van der Westhuizen, member of the committee.
Good morning, members. Are there any other members present on the platform? If not, we do have a quorum, so we will proceed with the meeting. Thank you, members, for introducing yourself. I have received apologies from the Minister, Minister Anton Bredell, as well as Mr. Paulse, the HOD of the department, who have other commitments on that coincide with today's meeting. Colleagues, this meeting is taking place on the MS Teams platform, and as we are very conversant by now, the rules of engagement for meetings taking place virtually, I shall not repeat those. Safe to say that the meeting is also broadcast live on the YouTube platform for outside parties that may be interested in the proceedings of this particular meeting. May I ask guests who are not presenting to keep their microphones on mute, and they are not allowed to participate in the meeting unless they are requested to do so by the chairperson. We are ably assisted by IT staff, Mr. San and Ms. Candice, for members who may experience technical glitches or difficulties during the course of the meeting, we welcome them also on the platform, and their able assistance, although they're not always audible in our meetings. Members, all members and participants and guests will be muted at the start of the meeting, and I would request that members who are presenting may switch on the camera if they so wish or participate in, but that they disable those functions as soon as they have concluded their participation, just to enable us to utilize, to have better reception for our meeting. Right, colleagues, that brings us to the end of the rules of engagement. But lastly, may I just mention that unfortunately, due to the limitation of the medium in which this meeting is taking place, we unfortunately do not have interpreting services available, and therefore I'd appreciate members could communicate in the medium of English, but should that be virtually, but perhaps if members wish to express themselves in a different language, we will definitely make sure that there is a degree of translation for those members who are not very conversant in that particular language. Today with us we have the officials of the department, and I will just name a few, and when they proceed with their presentation, there will be further introduction if need be. Today's proceeding is led by the department's delegation, is led by Ms. Barnard, who is the Chief Director of Municipal Performance and Monitoring and Support, and she will be ably assisted by Dr. Greyling, who is Director of Municipal Support and Capacity Building. Then we have Mr. Ryland, who is Director of District and Local Performance Monitoring, and we have Mr. Brandt, who is the Deputy Director of Municipal Governance in the Department of Local Government, and lastly we have Mr. Makam, who is the Director of Municipal Governance. Then we also have on the platform officials and members of the Office of the Auditor General, Mr. Gavin van der Hoven, Mr. Mbimbele is the Stakeholder Liaison Manager's Office. Gavin is the Stakeholder Liaison Manager. And then lastly, we have Mr. Mushlomi, who is the Stakeholder Liaison Manager, who's the Stakeholder Officer in the Stakeholders Manager's Office. Should the need arise that they need to provide clarity on certain matters emanating from a discussion, they are here to provide just clarity if need be. And then lastly, we have the officials of the Treasury, although they're not going to make a formal presentation. They on standby should be expected of Treasury officials to provide further clarity. They are willing and able to do so if need be, and their delegation is led by Ms. Cantana, who is the Deputy Director General Governance and Asset Management. So, colleagues, with all of those introductions, may I again call upon members who may have joined us lately, if there are any, to introduce themselves. Any members who have not introduced themselves previously who subsequently joined the meeting? Okay, it seems as if there are none. Can I call upon Mr. Kutsi, who is the Procedural Officer? Thank you for your able assistance. Are there any further apologies that you may be aware of that I'm not aware of, please?
Chairperson, no, I have not received any other apologies from any of the other members that have been duly notified of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Kutsi. With that, then we can immediately start with the meeting agenda. And the second item on the agenda is the presentation of the department in response to the audit outcomes of our municipalities in the Western Cape for the period 2019-2020. I hand over to the department's officials.
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson, and good morning, Honourable members. This is Ida. Good morning to all of you, and I hope that all is well. Yes, apologies from my HOD, they are busy with the PCF today. I see the Treasury is here also, so we have prepared a presentation, Honourable Chairperson. We have also liaised with the Treasury some of the work that we are doing in response of the outcome of the audit. We are working very closely with our colleagues from the Treasury, so I'm very happy to see them here today to be able to also provide responses where that may be required. So, Honourable Chairperson and members, we have prepared quite a comprehensive presentation which was made available to yourselves. I just want to connect with the Chairperson. Must I flight it, or will it be flighted on my behalf, the presentation?
It might be more easy for you to flight it yourself, then you can manipulate it yourself. Thank you as we proceed. Thank you, Ida.
I'm just trying to pull them over. I just want to see, Chairperson, it should be showing. No, it's not the correct one. Chairperson, if you'll allow me, I'm trying to just find the correct presentation. I can see it on my machine, but I'm struggling to open it.
That's all right, thank you. Ms. Bonnet, you want to flight it for you, perhaps?
Johan, I'll owe you a chocolate if you can do it quicker than me. I'll appreciate that, Chairperson.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Chair, I'll do that quickly.
Okay, thank you, Johan.
I'm on record, Chairperson, that I'll owe Johan a chocolate, Chairperson.
I'll remind him about it.
Thank you so much for that. There we go.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Johan. Thank you, Chairperson, for allowing me that little bit of latitude.
No problem.
So let us then start. So we will specifically then focus on the outcomes of the 1920 audit. Thanks, Johan. So at first, I think reflection from our side is important. And this is a presentation that was shared with us, honourable members, by the Provincial Treasury for us to be able to see the movement over the last 5 years. And it is interesting to note, and I think we've all reported that in the last 3 years, there's been a little bit of a change from the initial many green municipalities, and then some challenges 3 years ago, and then we can also now see a steady improvement. But this picture is for us very important together with the Treasury, so that we are in a better position to also plan and also be able to track the trends. And that's why this is a very, very helpful slide for us, honourable members. Next slide. This one, thank you so much. The Auditor General shared the presentation with us. And what we also try and do, honourable members, is we stay in regular contact also with the Auditor General, because we need to understand where the gaps are so that we can understand better how to support municipalities. But what we did see is that there's definitely a positive movement, and that the comments that were made is that there are good financial accounting controls, but obviously where are the vulnerable areas and the areas that we can provide support. But also what is very interesting for us is 18 clean audits, and then 9 unqualified, and then 3, which then falls in the purple and in the red category. And those are obviously the ones that ourselves in the Treasury will spend a bit of time on. Next slide. This slide also, thank you, from the Auditor General. So just to the honourable members, I've indicated in the top, if it says AG, then obviously it's a presentation that was made available to us by the Office of the Auditor General. And they also indicate to us that this is obviously not the final one. They had to cut off at a specific point in time. But honourable members, why this thing is so interesting for us is it helps us also to understand how municipalities are moving between the different categories of the audits, and to understand which of them may be experiencing challenges, and also during the audit process how they are moving around. So all of these we then package together, honourable members, as part of our understanding of why municipalities end up with a specific audit outcome. Next slide. And then this is our first important comment, and that is to say that we can definitely see that there is a marked improvement from our side in terms of our own municipalities. 18 received clean audits, a further 9 unqualified with findings. So that means that in the Western Cape, 90% of the 30 municipalities have unqualified opinions and above. So for us, and from where we are sitting together with the Treasury, we are wanting to actually congratulate our municipalities to say marked improvement and well done. And some of the support actions, but also the initiatives by the municipalities themselves, are really starting to bear fruit, and we can see that. But the last slide and the last bullet is also very important for us, honourable members. Beaufort West, Kannaland and Laingsburg are experiencing unique challenges at this point in time. It is also reflected in their audits, and later on in the presentation I will specifically highlight to the members what we are doing to support these 3 municipalities. Thank you, Johan. Once again, a slide that comes from the Office of the Auditor General. Very important that they are also reflecting and also highlighting the steady improvement since the regression that we all saw. And that's important for us, that we also convey the same message and that we also interpret the outcomes the same. And that was important for me just to show that also in the presentation. Our own view is that there is definitely an improvement, and so does the Auditor General. But in the same breath, honourable members, to say, let us look at the vulnerable areas that still need attention and still requires our specific support, so that we can then make sure that we move everybody over that line in the sand, if I can say that. Then, Johan, as we proceed, the next few slides, honourable members, we spent a little bit of time actually unpacking the detailed findings of the Auditor General. And thank you so much for the Auditor General's colleagues, the colleagues that are on the platform that made these available to us. I'm not going to go into the detail, honourable members, but what this is showing is specifically around financial statements. Were there adverse findings in any of the municipalities, specifically for financial statements? And in this case, none, and this just relates to financial statements. The next slide, we specifically look at PDOs. Were there? 1 at 1 municipality. So we know those municipalities are reported information not useful, and then obviously this then helps us and guides us to go back to those municipalities and to provide assistance and try and figure out why is it that finding was made, and to help them to correct it or to improve on it in the future. Next slide specifically looks at non-compliance. The picture is slightly different. For instance, procurement management, 5 adverse findings, and the honourable members will see there. These municipalities are then part and parcel of our support packages. But next slide, specific risks. is then just to indicate specific risks that were highlighted by the Auditor General is the quality of the performance report submitted. 6 municipalities were highlighted, supply chain 17, matters around financial health 6, none around human resource management, and then the ICT and municipalities 2. This once again then feeds into our monitoring and understanding what municipalities need. The next slide is a slide that was also provided to us by the Auditor General, and these are the risks or the areas that municipalities require attention going forward, specifically that they wanted to bring on numerous platforms to the attention of those platforms. And these matters are supply chain deviations, specifically around the functioning of bid adjudication committees, material irregularities, verification of indigence and debt collection. And these are persistent risks. These are matters that municipalities must still put their time and energy in, but obviously taking a step back, this also guides ourselves and the Provincial Treasury. Where should we put more of our energy? So in terms of what is our response, and this is a presentation, at least these slides, we're connecting very strongly with our colleagues from the Provincial Treasury in terms of Section 131. A municipality must address the issues raised by the Auditor General in his report, and the Mayor must ensure compliance. But further than that, the MEC for local government must assess all financial statements and report to the legislator any omission of a municipality to address these issues. But we also do, honourable members, is the Section 131 report is a combined report that we send together with our colleagues from Treasury to Cabinet to indicate the status of municipalities after their audits, and also some work that the Treasury is taking the lead on in responding to specific issues. So I just wanted to highlight that this is work that we are doing together with the Provincial Treasury. So in response, the next slide, as soon as the final report has been issued by a municipality, by the Auditor General, every municipality then prepares an audit action plan. This audit action plan specifically looks at the matters that were raised by the Auditor General that needs further attention. The plan is then adopted and considered by every municipality's audit committee, and both ourselves and the Treasury then receives a copy of this plan. The plan is unpacked in detail. The findings are highlighted. The responsible, and it's quite detailed, these plans. It says what needs to be done, how it must be done, who's taking responsibility, what controls needs to be put in place, and the target date is assigned. And this is tracked by the Provincial Treasury and shared with ourselves on an ongoing basis. So what we then do is, as soon as we receive these plans, ourselves and the Treasury look at it, and then we package our support plans according to the specific needs that may be highlighted. And once again, as I indicated, on a quarterly basis, a combined report between the two departments, we call it the Section 131 report, is then made available and also sent to Cabinet for the noting on the progress that municipalities are making. So Johan, if I then can move on. Now, what is interesting is we are saying to be able to move a municipality, honourable members, into a positive audit outcome space. When we prepared the presentation, we actually said to ourselves, we can put this in the negative way, Honourable Chairperson, or in a positive way. We can say that these things contribute to you struggling in terms of your audit or in terms of governance. But what we wanted to say is that if we want to have a positive outcome, if we want to have a stable municipality, if we want to have a culture of good governance that's ethical, efficient, and shows effective leadership that enables service delivery, there are actually a few contributing factors that needs to be there, and in combination will then help the municipality to strongly move forward. The first one, honourable members, is to have a political, stable council. that is able to fulfill their oversight responsibility effectively and also provide the necessary assurance. Now, the opposite is true, but the moment that you have a stable council, then the administration is also stable. The next contributing factor is ethical leadership. Ethical leadership that is democratic, accountable, and encourages citizen engagement and participation, that will then lead to good governance and facilitate efficient and effective service delivery. We have to internalize and live servant leadership principles. And lastly, from a political oversight point of view, from a political leadership point of view, never forget that at the end of the day, a citizen-centric approach is important to ensure that we address the challenges that is faced by our community. So the point that we're trying to make here, Chairperson, is to say these things, if we bring all of them to the table, then naturally the audit will reflect that. If we look at the administrative side, so I looked at the political side first, so let's look at the administration. What is a contributing factor? You need experienced, competent executive management and staff that focuses on effective and efficient service delivery while maintaining compliance. So that is doing the right things in the right way to ensure that we can do service delivery, putting measures in place to institutionalize good administration and strong cooperative governance practices, uphold the integrity and the credibility of the municipality by ensuring that public funds can be accounted for. And that's exactly where the Auditor General responsibility comes in. But it's the administration that must make sure that the integrity and the credibility is upheld. Putting measures in place to ensure that there's good financial management and quality reporting, to make sure that there's strong internal control measures that at the end helps with delegations, compliance and oversight. And lastly, an administration that puts the community first and ensures access to services to all members at the same level. Now, members, next slide. It was also then encouraging for us to see, when we look at the slide, that this is exactly also the view of the Auditor General. The tone from the top, capacitate and stabilize the administration, enable and insist on a strong control environment and consistent and appropriate and swift consequence management for accountability failures. So what we are seeing is that our view and that of the Auditor General in terms of laying a strong enough foundation for the municipality to not only have a clean audit, but to function effectively and strongly is exactly captured in the last three slides. Now the next little section, Honourable Chairperson, I will just reflect on, so what are some of the support actions the Department of Local Government is giving, and also to just give a sense to the members about our strategy in providing support, which we feel is very important. So firstly, next slide. Thank you, Johan. Our efforts are obviously aimed at strengthening the council oversight, governance and service delivery. So we are not only looking at one of the facets, we are actually looking when we support municipalities at the entire package, the council, the administration, service delivery, but also the consultation for the communities. In achieving this, we put a very, very strong focus on the objects of local government, as it is laid out in section 152. But what we then very specifically do as a department is, we focus on section 154 of the Constitution, and we unpack or actually have in our cupboard 3 sets of support initiatives available that we can help municipalities with. Honourable members, the first one is transversal support initiatives. I will unpack a little bit that in the next few slides, but those are support initiatives that run across a number of municipalities, and they're normally aimed at strengthening systems and processes and making sure that the municipalities can function effectively. The second one is what we call holistic bespoke support packages. Now those one At the moment, we are currently in the province still using the back to basics principles of national, but in essence, this is a vehicle where in our department, we pull together every single department that can provide support to a municipality into one space, one support plan, and we take that support plan to the municipality and make sure that we address the challenges a specific municipality may be facing. And then the last one, which the committee is aware of, we also have a little bit of potentially financial support available that we can make available to municipalities, but we have very, very strict criteria that we have determined over time to help us determine and prioritize which municipalities can get funding support or not. So next slide, some of the transversal support initiatives. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, Chairperson, the detail is there. But if we look at oversight, or specifically the strengthening of political leadership, we have dedicated training to councillors, and we've done a lot of ethical training. And what is my own role as councillor? Not only in ethics, but also in my community. We've spent a lot of time on that. We've supported municipalities with the functioning of impact. We provide ongoing support and assistance in terms of legal interpretation and legal opinions. And also very important for us, the JDMA actually facilitates that the councillors play a much stronger role in the oversight in municipalities and also to drive the processes that are taking place. Next slide. Some of the support that we're giving transversally in terms of the administration is we monitor on an ongoing the vacant position of senior managers, and we provide advices. We also prepared practice notes. Now, the practice notes is actually just a document to say step by step, how do you go about to appoint a senior manager that it is legally compliant. We are hosting a number of intergovernmental support forums, and honourable members, these ones are very important for us. So just an example, there is a Municipal Property Rights Act MPRA focus group, and the officials that works in municipalities with the municipal property rights come together on a quarterly basis, and they discuss and unpack matters that relate only to that function. And this is one of the measures that we have put in place that we've seen very good results on. And there are a number of such. I just mentioned two. There's an infrastructure forum where Marius meets with all the technical directors, for instance. Then we do a number of diagnostic assessments. And then after that, we institutionalize Section 154 support packages. I'll unpack that a little bit later on. What we are also starting to do a lot more of, honourable members, we are doing research on specific matters. We just concluded one now on the impact of COVID-19 on the financial sustainability in municipalities, and we normally use our universities or tertiary institutions to provide support to us. And then lastly, we are also starting to focus a lot more on providing support and assistance for municipalities around their ICT function. If we can move to the next slide, basic service delivery. We are also assisting much more getting involved in direct assessments to determine what are the root causes of specific challenges that municipalities may have in terms of rendering basic services. For instance, in the last 2 weeks, a bridge in Wuppertal washed away as a result of a flood. We immediately released some of our engineers. They made very technical recommendations, and we are currently supporting both Cederberg and the West Coast District to fix the bridge, as it is a major feeding arm between some of the villages. So our engineers are getting more directly involved to provide hands-on support. We also then deploy some of our engineers and our geohydrologists to provide support in this regard. The third slide is something new that we're very excited about. We are introducing new planning and funding models for bulk infrastructure, and that is being supported by our donor partners. Then moving to the next slide is just our specific support plans that we have. Now, honourable members, these ones are where municipalities are experiencing specific challenges, like for instance, let's use Kannaland municipality. They have a plan, a support plan. There are a number of municipalities At the moment, we had 10 on back to basics. We still have 6 on back to basics. But what we're also getting, honourable members, is municipalities coming to us and say to us, please, we want operational support plans because of the value the platform adds of bringing all of the sector departments together into one space. So these still remain an option available. Then just the next slide, just wanted to quickly just reflect on the 3 municipalities that was highlighted by the audit outcomes. So Beaufort West Municipality, there is a Section 139(5), a mandatory intervention that was adopted by Cabinet last week. So at the moment, ourselves and Treasury are busy liaising with the National Treasury to commence with the development of financial recovery plan. In actual fact, we have a meeting just after this to discuss that. And what we then do from our side, while the Provincial Treasury drives the financial recovery plan, we then prepare what we call a Section 154 support package that actually comes in around the financial recovery plan and addresses matters of service delivery and governance that is not necessarily captured in the financial recovery plan. So it's a combined support effort. Kanaland, there is a Section 139(5) still underway. National Treasury recently approved and updated the new financial recovery plan, but there is ongoing litigation at the moment in Kanaland. In Laingsburg, our teams combined also with a few other departments from the province recently concluded a detailed diagnostic assessment. We completed the report and we are waiting to provide feedback to both the council and the administration about how to change their back to basic support program to also some of the gaps that we identified so that we can support them moving forward. Then just quickly an indication where we currently have interventions in municipalities. Kanaland is the one that we highlighted in the presentation. That one is ongoing. Just to indicate that there is currently still instability in the council and in the administration. We find that the administration is dysfunctional at the moment, but that we are still going to proceed with the implementation of the financial recovery plan as prepared by the National Treasury and our support initiatives also coming through from our department side. And the second municipality is Beaufort West, which was approved last week and is currently being rolled out as we speak. Then in terms of enhancing our own monitoring capabilities, Chairperson, there are literally 2 slides where we just wanted to share with the committee. We are in the process of really updating our monitoring of municipalities. What we will do in future, we will monitor on the left-hand side those 5 functional areas, which is political oversight, administrative stability, service delivery, public participation, and then investigations, or alternatively complaints that we receive from the community. And then what we have already started doing, but will do much stronger in the future, is to categorize municipalities into green, yellow, and red. Identify areas that are functioning well and strong, but also identify areas that municipalities are experiencing challenges so that we can focus and target our support a lot better. So on the next slide, this is what we're doing at the moment, but it will be strengthened going forward. On the left-hand side, the M&E, that is the information, like for instance, coming from the Auditor General, the information we collect ourselves from municipalities, sector departments, but also informal information that we collect, complaints that we receive from the community, that we use to figure out what is the kind of support that the municipality needs. Is it only transversal support? Do you need a detailed support package? And then we want to move to the right-hand side. And then hopefully the top block, the outcome is that there's positive improvement as we've seen now reflected by the Auditor General, and there's an improved lived experience by the members living in that municipality. Or the bottom one, where there is a regression, then obviously there are other measures that the province needs to consider, ourselves in the Treasury, like intervention that we had to do in the recent past. Then just in terms of the JDMA, I'm going to not go into detail. Just this first slide, the rationale, I think the committee is familiar with. Johan, thank you. Next slide. Just to indicate that it's now been institutionalized in all of the 5 districts. All of the committees are functional, and all of the districts have also updated their plans for the 2021 financial year that contains a number of projects that are currently being implemented in all of the districts. In terms of the city or the metro, there has been an agreement reached, and that's the next slide, that they agreed on a committee system as a version of the JDMA, and it will focus on strategic planning, infrastructure planning, service delivery, and governance and reporting. And our HOD and the city manager are in constant consultation to finalize and also formalize the institutionalization thereof in the metro. The next slide is just highlighting, and this is the last slide, honourable members, is just saying that the JDMA has actually helped us to improve relations. It helped us to figure out a new way of doing business across functional areas and beyond mandates. It helped us to bring together national departments, provincial departments, private stakeholders, other people that may play a role in a geographical space to work together, plan together, implement together to the advantage of that specific area. So what we're starting to see is we're really starting to see the JDMA work, and I will just cite 1 or 2 of the positive examples of where we are seeing it work. The DRAP program, that's the drought response program, that's been very successful in the Central Karoo and also in what we call the Greater Karoo area. What we can also indicate is that we have, in one of the districts, we have done a land swap. Honourable Chairperson, between 3 departments and a high school, we moved land around to be able to secure land for a new primary school, and that primary school will be built in the next financial year. But I think most importantly is that we are seeing that this model of the JDMA is starting to bring colleagues together. So if there are challenges in a district, the JDMA structures are being called upon to assist to resolve those challenges. One such example is that we're struggling with stray animals across many of the municipalities, and what we've done in one of the districts is to actually utilize the JDMA networks to solve the problem, and it was effectively and efficiently solved. So the JDMA is starting to show that it does work if we collaborate, if we work together as colleagues and as partners, and we find a middle way, then we will work together better for that specific community. So, Chairperson, that then brings me to the end of my presentation, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett, for the informative presentation. I'm going to open up the discussion to our members if they wish to pose any questions for clarity or a further explanation, and then we will take it from there. I recognize we unfortunately only have 2 members other than myself on the platform, so I recognize Honourable van der Westhuizen and then Honourable Maseko, and then we will take it from there. Thank you. Honourable van der Westhuizen, please, you may proceed.
Thank you,
Do you recognize my hand too, Chairman, or not?
Thank you, Honourable Maria. Welcome to our meeting. I didn't know that you were present, but you are recognized. Honourable van der Westhuizen, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation, but particularly for the hard work that is clearly reflected in this presentation. Chair, I have just a few comments and then questions. The first one is I'm delighted to hear about these forums of officials getting together. I sincerely believe that, you know, one of the ways in which I personally have learned a lot about certain topics while engaging with colleagues and speaking to people, both in formal forums but also informally, as they say, often, people find the discussions over tea time and over lunchtime at congresses to be the most valuable. And particularly nowadays, as these forums, I presume, can meet online, I think, without all the time that gets wasted on the road, that these forums can really add a lot of value. Now, it seems to me as if the supply chain management system still seems to be the biggest source of can I call it trouble or source of findings in terms of financial statements. And my question is particularly regarding the training of supply chain management officials. But I presume it's not only the officials that are working within the supply chain management division, but I think one of the challenges is the getting best practices in terms also of the specifications for purchases. And I'm wondering if Ms. Barnard could perhaps help us to say to what extent is there a depository of, for example, good specifications, because filling a pothole in municipality A basically, I presume, would require very similar specifications in municipality B, and on the other hand, you can't go out on a bid for each and every pothole. So hopefully there are some good practices that have already emerged and been established. The second one is she made the statement of Kannaland's administration currently being dysfunctional. Now, I do know that there have been a lot of interventions and support rendered to Kannaland. Perhaps if she wouldn't mind just sharing with us, what is the current situation? Is the person that's been sent there by province to assist still in that position, etc.? And then the next question is just, Chair, to what extent do we still find that councillors and particularly executive mayors may struggle to understand, what the extent of their reach is in terms of the administration? Because I still find it a very interesting concept. On the one hand, we have what we call an executive mayor, and on the other hand, it's almost as if the legislation contradicts itself by saying that no councillor may interfere with the administration. Now, how can you be in an executive position and be named executive, but then you must be completely hands off in terms of the administration of the municipality? And then lastly, Chair, I do know that province recently was served with a legal opinion on the oversight role that the Department of Local Government can play over local municipalities. And my understanding, without having seen that legal opinion, is that that legal opinion says that obviously we must respect the different spheres of government, and that the oversight function of a municipality is actually its council. Now, the question is obviously always who oversees the overseers. To what extent can we continue as a province in the light of that legal opinion by exercising oversight over local governments, or are we now only limited to offering support and that only in certain very restricted cases can the province intervene, which obviously I think we will all agree is the last resort and one which one would like never to be needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen. I recognize Honourable Maseko. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think some of the questions Member van der Westhuizen already have covered me, and I need to echo also to say that the department with the presentation, they really have gone into details in trying to say what is it that they are are going to put in place or that they have in place in assisting those municipalities. Just the three maybe quick ones. I want to understand the department, how optimistic are they, or maybe how is it possible is for the department for them to be able to deal with the risk of the political instability or the dynamics when coming to the municipalities that are really struggling. Because when you look, when you look, it's the same municipalities throughout the financial years that you see that it's a repeat audit outcome that is not the expectations, even though there is the support from the department, unless if what we have now as the provincial approach towards municipality support is the new act that they are going to give to the municipalities. But if it has been there, what is it that is going to be different? What is it that they have identified that they can do different in those municipalities? Let's say in Beaufort West, for them to say that what they have now is going to make a difference. Are they optimistic to see that happening there, or they are going to try as they've been trying throughout the years? That is, it's one question that I want to find out from them. The other one, Chair, is the issue. I think the Auditor General also, I think for the past 2 or 3 financial years, if it's more than that, has highlighted the concern of the financial the consultants in the municipalities. Does the department, and I need to be corrected if I'm wrong, Chair, the department or the minister, they approve the appointment of the senior personnel like your CFO, or it's only the municipality, the MM only? If I'm wrong, they don't approve the not approve, I don't know what word to use. Is there an action plan from the department to try and do away with the duplicate responsibility of the CFOs and the consultants, because they're doing one and the same jobs? And like the Auditor General highlighted, saying that the CFOs are highly qualified. They hire highly qualified that they can do the jobs. So they don't understand sometimes that why municipalities, there is a dependency on the consultants when reporting, when they are doing the financial statements. So in this action plan of the support from the province, do they have something that talks to that to assist the municipalities so that they can cut the cost of using the consultants when coming to the financial support in the municipality? And I'm asking this even though I know that from the agenda, it's not one of the things that were highlighted, but I'm just through you, and I know you are a very best chairperson, you'll allow me to maybe hear if they can respond to that. The last one, Chair, is not a question, it's just a request. If we can get, there is the 5 pillars of the municipal performance monitoring that I saw the department have established. If maybe as we get the quarterly report, we can get a commitment, it will also be included to see how are they going about in making sure that the municipalities, they adhere to those pillars in assisting them for their work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Maseko. I recognize Honourable Moret. Welcome to our meeting. You're not a regular attendee, but we're delighted to have you with us this morning. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. You're so right. I'm not a regular attendee, and I apologize to the committee that the Freedom Front only has 1 member in Parliament, but hopefully after October it will be much better. At the moment, I'm concerned that this is just going through normal paces, with department come and brief us with flowery language, highfalutin vocabulary about all the things they are doing, but the problems are chronic problems. It's not been resolved. Kannaland is a deliberate delinquent. And I heard them say that Kannaland and Laingsburg is again in the news, and I'm sure Beaufort West too. And then we heard that we need municipal political leadership, ethical leadership, and accountable leadership. But, Chairman, you know, trouble in terms of politics starts at the top and it flows down, never flows up. The man at the top can fire the one at the bottom. One at the bottom at third level cannot fire the one at the top. We should start right at the top, come down to provincial and say, can we meet across party lines and once and for all resolve the issues at delinquent municipalities like Kannaland and Laingsburg? We've got to set the record straight and speak as one. It's no use we have meetings and meetings, but the parties who rule there protect their members from any action. We go from administration to administration, and then as soon as the administration is given back to those incompetent people at local government level, the problem renews itself. It reinvents itself. So I want the department to tell me, we're going in circles with Kannaland, we're going in circles with Laingsburg, even Beaufort West, and I don't even want to talk about Bito. What are we going to do about it? Should we not, as political parties in the province, come to an agreement on how we are going to tackle the problems there? If it is political, if it is poor administration, if it is corruption in terms of not observing constitutional imperatives in terms of procurement, it must be resolved. They can't just appoint anybody as a municipal manager or give contracts to people unqualified to carry out those contracts. We've got to address it at political level. Those municipalities follow what their leader in the province says. And the leader in the province of that party follows what the leader at national says. This is a much bigger problem than just listening to reports, because some of the words and phrases used here, many of us might not even know what's going on. How do you expect those people down there, John and Tan Henny and Kobus, to know what it means and how it should be carried out? I think we're going in circles. We must strengthen capacity of municipalities, yes. There must be transversal support initiatives, yes. Beautiful words like holistic support packages and all that. It means absolutely nothing to people that's uneducated at local level. The best candidates normally get on the national parliamentary list. Those who don't make that list go to the provincial list. And the rest, who would never make it for province or national, they dump at local government level. And then we expect to get a report. We'll never get an A report. We'll always get Fs. That's all I want to say. How do we solve this? It's a political solution that's required. Nothing to do with efficiency, because those people just do exactly what they want. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Maria. I'm going to ask the department to respond to this round of questions, and then we will open a second round. And then I also have a few questions I'd like to pose. But for now, I'm going to hand back to Ms. Barnett, and she may choose to direct to her delegation as to who's going to respond to which question. Over to you, Ms. Barnett.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I'm going to ask, please, there are two questions that the colleagues in the Provincial Treasury, I'm going to ask them to to assist me with those ones. Those two will be specifically the one around the use of consultants and then one for supply chain. So I'm going to ask them to deal with those two first, if they don't mind, and then I will come in after them, Honourable Chairperson, and then I will deal with the rest.
In order, Ms. Barnett, I see Mr. Hardin is going to like to make an intervention. Mr. Hardin.
Good morning, Honourable Chairperson of
Thanks,
the Standing Committee on Local Government, and I wouldn't call it an intervention. I just want to give some responses in relation to the questions. In response to the question from Honourable Member van der Westhuizen and then Member Maseko. In terms of the good question relating to acknowledging the forums, the good forums, Member van der Westhuizen, this is exactly the platforms and forums that we've established so that we could learn from one another. Having 30 municipalities in a forum, some of the better ones learning, or some of the weaker municipalities learning from the better ones, learning best practices, that is the best way to learn. And it is really a forum, especially on our supply chain forums. We've established forums with the municipalities where forums not just with the 30 municipalities, but we have district forums as well. Now, the question in relation to best practices for specifications of goods and services, that is a very good suggestion. However, every municipality may have their own specifications that they need to deal with. And for that, in terms of the minimum, the municipal minimum competencies, all of the key officials needs to do at least the municipal minimum competencies, which Treasury monitors, to make sure that there is a good education and good understanding around supply chain management. Supply chain management is but one of the issues that is addressed. The municipalities also have, on a periodic basis, an opportunity to ask our supply chain colleagues on these forums any questions that comes across their desk, any issues of interpretation. And then very importantly, within the supply chain cadre as well, we have a supply chain help desk where we support and we guide any of the municipalities that have concerns. Questions regarding specifications can come through, questions regarding bid committee can come through. So we deal with any types of questions from our supply chain side that the municipalities may need assistance. Regarding the question on the utilization of consultants, now Member Maseko, I must put this in context. If you look at the Auditor General report on the audit outcomes for the country, last year for 2018-19, the Auditor General cited that the country has paid 741 million for consultants in the preparation of financial statements. And that was at some point in time because not all the audits was finalized. Now, taking that into consideration and taking into consideration you have 256 municipalities across the country, that means on average a municipality must spend about on average municipality spends about 3 million on consultants. Now, if you take 3 million times 30 municipalities, then a projected cost for consultants in the Western Cape should be around 90 million on average if you consider what happens in the rest of the country. The amount spent on consultants for the Western Cape was 42 million. And obviously some municipalities have spent more than others. And if you look at the results of the audit outcomes, you can understand why there's this expenditure on consultants. On the accounting side, there were very technical issues that no CFO by himself would be able to resolve. In fact, you can have a discussion with the Auditor General and you would see that on the audit outcomes of 2019-20, many of the technical issues, the Auditor General had to themselves seek guidance from specialists in the National Office of the Auditor General. So Provincial Treasury is constantly monitoring the spend on consultants. Everyone is not the same. We do not encourage the spend on consultants, but we understand because the GRAP standards are evolving continuously And unless we have a continuous professional development course that CFOs and the officials of the BTO office can attend throughout the year, the spend on consultants is understandable. Sometimes what also happens is that there is instability in a municipality, but the MM will need to have that financial statement submitted. And for that reason, sometimes they do engage with consultants. But Provincial Treasury, the minimum that we do is we look at the cost charged by these consultants, and we do, through our MGRO process, make sure that the municipalities are not spending at least the rate for the consultants more than what the DPSA rate is. And we also look at the types of consulting engagements. So it is something that is one of the criteria that we monitor, in addition to the various quarterly sessions that we have in municipalities on the technical issues that needs to be addressed. I must say, in terms of the audit outcomes, and the AG will agree here, is that the audits are becoming extremely technical. Sometimes it is interpretation issues, and it's especially in the instances where there are matters of interpretation that the municipalities are forced to utilize consultants because they need to get an independent view of what happens on certain GRAP standards. I hope that covers the question for Member Maseko as well as Van der Westhuizen. I pass it back to you, Ida. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hardin. Could I just ask Honourable Murray, is that a legacy hand? Because if it is so, could I ask you to lower it so that I could direct the meeting in an orderly way? Thank you, sir.
Apologies, it's an old hand. Apologies.
You're welcome, Honourable Murray. Thank you. I hand back to Ms. Barnett so that we could respond to the remaining questions. I will open up another round so for further clarity and further questions if need be. Thank you, Ms. Barnett. Back to you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and thank you so much, Aziz, for assisting us. Just Aziz also raised it, but I just want to connect also through you, Chairperson, through Honourable Member Van der Westhuizen. I couldn't agree with you more, sir. These forums are invaluable to the work that we are doing. It helps us to connect with each other. We also make sure that we bring specialists in, so it's a learning experience. But what we also find is that because municipalities then connect with each other, we build networks and bridges, whereby in future maybe they don't need to phone the province if they need help, they start phoning each other. So definitely it's a strategy that's worked for us in the past. And what we also do, for instance, is if there's new legislation, we take it to them, we workshop it with them. So definitely it's something that works for us very, very strongly. Then just in terms of Kanaland municipality, there are currently a number of vacancies, and there has been a number of vacancies of senior positions in the Kanaland municipality, of which one that is causing particular challenges is the vacancy of the technical director. The immediate layer below the director is also vacant at the moment. Also, the municipal manager has been on special leave for some time now. So there is a number of matters that we are currently, as a department, looking into specifically inside the administration. Just specifically around the administrator that is there to assist with the financial recovery plan. He is on site. He is also in contact with the newly appointed acting municipal manager as well as the mayor. And as indicated before, the financial recovery plan was recently updated and signed off by the National Treasury, and we will now go back into the municipality to provide support to implement that. Then just in terms of the oversight role and the legal opinion, Chairperson, with your consideration, I'm going to request, please, that I refer that question to my HOD. He handled that matter himself, so I'm not at privy at the moment to provide feedback on that matter to the committee. So if you will allow me, we will come back to that specific question and provide a response in writing specifically around the legal opinion and that oversight role. Chairperson, if you'll allow me that, please.
No problem, Ms. Barnett.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Then I will move to the question of Member Maseko, and that is specifically the risk and also the dynamics in councils. Obviously, we see where councils are, the coalitions are very close, and the numbers are very close. We find that the councils are not necessarily that stable. But I think what is important for us, the point that we want to make, is that the functions that have been assigned by various pieces of legislation to councils in terms of oversight and also keeping the municipalities running are very, very closely legislated and guided in terms of directions and also regulations. So when these are not fulfilled, then obviously it becomes our department's responsibility to act in that regard, and then there are specific actions that we need to follow, and these are also then guided to us in terms of the legislation. So for councils to continue to proceed to fulfill their oversight responsibilities and other responsibilities is of critical importance, also to ensure that the municipalities keep on functioning and render their services. Chairperson, I will pause there for now and then for the next round of questions, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett, and thank you, Ms. Hardin, for your responses. What members, just if you wish to have a question for clarity or in terms of the responses, not new questions, anything that may emanate from the responses that require further illumination. Honourable Maria, I recognise you, and then we can then proceed with new questions. I have one or two as well. You may proceed, Honourable Maria.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. The question I want to have as a follow-up question is the following. Do you think Kannaland is a question of redemarcation of municipal boundaries? The municipal boundaries has been there a very long time. We've now seen over the past 27 years what works and what don't work. Obviously, they're not economically viable, and obviously they don't have people living in that area who is competent enough to run a municipality. That much I know. Should we have a relook at how that municipality's boundaries should look to incorporate more energy and competencies into the municipality from people or from other municipalities that can oversee what Kannaland is doing? And then I would like to say there's a number of vacancies, you say, the technical director and the deputy is vacant. The municipal manager is on special leave. The administrator is on site. And of course, your FR plan is in place. Can this municipality be administered virtually instead of just being on site? Can it be administered? We've got to think out of the box here. It's not normal situation with COVID. We're living in abnormal situation, so we must act abnormally. Question, can Kannaland municipality as an exception, legally and constitutionally, be run virtually? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Maria, for that question, for clarity. I'm just going to, for that, it's very specific to a previous question asked by Honourable Maria. Ms. Barnett, if you'd like to just respond, because then we will open up around for new questions. Thank you.
Honourable Chairperson, I take it that the last question is the question that I need to respond to, and that is that, can Kannaland municipality be administered virtually? My response as a person that that has worked in the municipal recovery space for some time is that it cannot necessarily work as well as when you physically have people there. A person to say, come on, let's do this, and make sure that it's done, and then take the hands of those there and help them to turn around. So yes, I agree with the honourable member, we have to think differently, but when we look at the turnaround of municipalities, to have a team physically on the ground that can provide hands-on support, that is ideal. And we've seen the successes that we've seen in the past, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, where we were able to successfully turn municipalities around. That is the model that we used. A person supported by technical people that goes in physically on the ground, taking the hand of the officials, helping them, upskilling them, and being there to help and assist, and then draw out over time. So that model has worked for us in the past, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. Honourable Murray, I hope that it, answers some of your concerns, but I'm going to leave it at that space for now. I mean, if you wish to ask further questions later, you're most welcome to do so.
Yes, sir, if you can just answer about the redemarcation of the municipal boundaries, because Kanderland is a failure from start to finish.
Thank you. We will deal with that. I'm sure there will be a response to that, and it's more of a political response than from an administrative point of view from the department. But thank you, colleagues. I recognize Honourable van der Westhuizen, but let me firstly say to the department, thank you for the presentation. I think it is very detailed, and as a standing committee over the past few years, we have come to know the various hands-on interventions you make in municipalities to, and not only the department, but also Treasury, in ensuring that we achieve the outcomes that we achieve, and I think it is by no means insignificant if you juxtapose it with the national audit outcomes of the 257 municipalities, and I think that there are exceptions. And those exceptions we need to deal with, but in the main, from our side in the Western Cape, the Treasury as well as the department, there is that commitment which is displayed in this presentation to ensure that we continue to have good audit outcomes, for a lack of a better word. But what was highlighted is that, and the pattern is clear, where there is that sort of strong ethical leadership and strong administrative leadership, you get the outcomes that is presented in this audit reports of the past few years, and it is not an exception this year. So. One of the elements that was raised in your presentation, Ms. Barnett, is that once the audit reports are released and made available to the various councils and or administrations, they need to draw up an audit action plan, and that audit action plan is sort of also provided both yourself and to Treasury, and it is a plan that has to happen on an annual basis. Now, in the case of those municipalities that have sort of adverse audit opinions, what's the relationship between the adherence and implementation of those action plans to ensure that better audit outcomes are achieved, and because there need to be early warning signs that we are going to achieve a particular outcome if this particular plan is not followed. And the Department of Treasury having possession of that plan provided to you by the administration, monitoring is in place to ensure that there is sort of adherence to that particular plan that will achieve that particular objective. That's on the one hand. And if you look at the Central District Municipality, although it had received a clean audit for that 2019-20 financial year, it was under conditions of political stability within that municipality. Subsequently, things have changed. There's political instability, there's administrative instability, and it may follow the same trajectory that the Beaufort West municipality is following. Are there measures in place to monitor and to prevent that that sort of calamity that may occur as it has happened in Beaufort West, you know, when it comes to the 2020-21 audit outcomes. And then thirdly, specific challenges and risks have been sort of identified. And there are quite a number of risks within supply chain management, and I recognize and I'm cognizant of the efforts being put in place by Treasury as well as the department to mitigate those risks. But what I do, you know, engage, you know, ascertain through the engagement rural municipalities in particular, is the risk of non-compliance with regard to local content, and often it results in a unqualified audit with findings because of that sort of deficiency in terms of complying fully with the local content prescript. To what extent, you know, are we able to address that particular risk for municipalities that is the defining line between a clean audit and an unqualified audit with findings as a result of perhaps an element that's related to local content. And then Mr. Hardin mentioned about the consultants, and I'm not, you know, of the view that consultants is a evil that should never be engaged, etc., because this place for consultants and they provide valuable services to whoever is contracting them. My question with regard to consultants is there, because we can contract out our responsibilities as my colleagues have has mentioned, but is there acquiescence with the department or Treasury in relation to the contracting of consultants within certain municipalities, within our municipalities, to fulfill a certain function for that particular municipality? Or is it carte blanche, or the municipality can simply just, you know, because you know, there's a particular relationship with a particular firm within a particular locality, and then just farm out responsibilities to them? And then lastly, I think when the Auditor General made the presentation to this committee, my colleague Honourable van der Westhuizen raised the question around audit fees and the astronomical cost of audits of the audits for our municipalities, and given the fact that the AG has a monopoly, etc., there is not that sort of competitive sort of environment created to reduce costs. And I asked a question to the minister to give a while ago to give us a breakdown of the audit fees of each municipality in the Western Cape. And I must say, colleagues, and I, it is astronomical for small municipalities in particular. I mean, I take an example like Swellendam, who is in dispute with the Auditor General's Office with regard to the audit costs. We received a clean audit with very, very few findings. And I raised it at the time when the minister gave the answer to me with the minister in terms of the enormity of the costs. And it was intimated to me that municipalities don't bear all the costs. Some of the cost is borne by Treasury. Now, in small rural municipalities, you know, a 2 million rand can go a long way in rendering services. And with these astronomical costs, it reduces the availability of funds to render necessary services to our municipalities. Perhaps Treasury can just provide a context and a response to that concern. And I'm going to stop there. I'm going to allow my colleagues to proceed. Honourable van der Westhuizen, I see Honourable van Marais also wish to raise a further question if it is not a legacy hand. Honourable van der Westhuizen, I hand back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can I just first comment again? I must address the issue of raised by Honourable Marais, and I must say, Honourable Marais, I must say the problems experienced with some municipalities are, and I think officials refer to it, directly related to instability. And unfortunately, that instability is often caused by, you know, coalitions, changes in coalitions, and also we must not forget the unfortunate history of floor crossing and what happened in certain of our municipalities. And if we go back, you know, a municipality like Swartland, which never suffered from instability, I think is a leading example of a stable administration, well-performing administration, whereas I'm sorry to say, but it seems almost as if the further you go from Cape Town, the more unstable some of those councils have been, and we see that also, in my mind, in any case, in the problems that they experience, also as pointed out by the Auditor General. Chair, just a follow-up. I missed a clear answer on my question regarding the powers and functions of executive mayors in the light of the clause which I referred to, which prohibits interference in the administration of the municipality. And perhaps if the officials feel that you know we must concentrate on financial reporting today, then perhaps we must take this as a resolution forward, because we will soon see new executive mayors, and I think it's extremely important that we provide them with clear guidance in this regard. The second question is just an interesting one for me, and that is, can ethical conduct be promoted through a training program, or is ethics something that, you know, one develops from your childhood experience? I almost want to say that you get with your mother's milk. And then, Chair, the last question on the second last one on the financial position, municipalities are not allowed to budget for deficits. Yet we see serious financial constraints in many of our municipalities, and we see maintenance of critical infrastructure often suffering. And perhaps the officials would just like to comment on what the AG found in this regard. there was a very interesting slide where they pointed out that no problems were experienced or identified in terms of assets, in terms of liabilities, etc. I think it was just after that the next slide then pointed out that in municipalities, there were findings regarding supply chain management. Now, my question is also regarding municipal debt, what the ratepayers and residents owe the municipality. And the accuracy of that figure in your statements. If you say you're going to recover 96% of your income that's due to you, but you only recover 80% of the income due to you, then obviously, your budget and your final statements are out of sync. And some of the figures in that final statements may also not be an accurate reflection of your actual position. And perhaps if the officials could just say, because those debtors are shown as assets in the books, in the statements, and I'm just wondering to what extent can we, when we look at these statements, accept them as reflecting accurately the financial position and well-being of those municipalities. If the officials would just like to allay my fear that some of these statements, unfortunately, still don't give us the actual figure that is happening there on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van der Westhuizen, for those questions and remarks. Honourable Marais, I hand back to you if you have further questions you'd like to ask.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much, Chairman. Mrs. Barnard, she answered my question, but I want to again take her on a response. I'm in local government since 1974. Then we still had the coloured management committees, black councils and municipalities. Ms. Barnard, in those years, municipal councillors only had one meeting a month, and that's, they never even got paid. It was a pleasure to be a councillor. The municipality was run by the officials. They saw to the finances, the books, they were qualified people, the engineering department, everything. They ran a municipality. So now that the oversight function which you mentioned, and I don't know how far you're prepared to speak on the oversight, that they can do oversight themselves. Nobody can do oversight of yourself. So my question latched onto that. If municipalities is supposed to have an oversight function over themselves, then certainly the financial functions, the technical functions, the engineering functions, all these functions can easily be outsourced and left to the officials who's appointed, and the municipality then have an oversight function. But if they want to do it themselves, if they want to appoint, do all the appointments, political appointments, how are they going to oversee themselves? So I'm just not sure that it cannot be managed virtually. You don't need an accountant to sit there in the office at the municipality. The accountant can do the book sitting at home. The people that does all the planning can sit at home, doing all the planning for that municipality, and the auditing functions, internal auditing. You don't have to have people at the council doing this work. This is what I was referring to. I don't want to belabor the point, but I still think this is a discussion that will still happen between the parties in a provincial parliament about what do we do with municipalities like Kannaland who's delinquent. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Marais, for the remarks and questions. Any other further questions, colleagues? May I just, lastly, just ask a final question, and then we'll allow the department to respond to all the questions together. You may not, adequately be in a position to respond to this question, but I'm going to pose it nonetheless. The role of SALGA in cultivating this kind of ethical leadership and within municipalities to ensure that there's good governance, because all municipalities, to a large extent, is somehow affiliated to SALGA, and municipalities pay enormous membership fees to belong to a structure. What role does the SALGA play in ensuring that we have this kind of leadership stability within municipalities to ensure that we have good governance and good audit outcomes? If Ms. Barnett, you're able to respond to it, you may. If not, then certainly I'll accept. Thank you, and I hand over back to you to respond to those additional questions posed.
Chairperson, thank you so much. I'm going to ask, please, there's a number of questions here that specifically relates to matters that I think my colleagues from the Provincial Treasury can assist me. I just want to connect through you, Chairperson, if I may, with Aziz. It's specifically around the audit action plans. There was a follow-up about supply chain, consultants, audit fees, specifically assets and liabilities, and the debt. Chairperson, I'm just connecting through you, if I may, with Aziz, please, and then I'll come in afterwards and handle the rest, if that carries your approval, sir.
No problem. Mr. Hardin, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Must please bear with me, and I'm going to ask Edith to keep me honest. This is unscripted because the questions have not been supplied before. And any questions that we miss, we will definitely be able to respond to it should we get it in writing. So the first question was for the municipalities that have received adverse audit opinions. Is there a correlation between the action plans, the implementation action plans, and what is the view from the Provincial Treasury? Let me say in this province, the law, the MFMA section, I think 132, it says that every municipality must draw up an action plan based on the audit report of the Auditor General. Now, the audit report is a report that tells you either you have done well or you have done not so well. The Western Cape government, through the Provincial Treasury and the Department of Local Government, we take it one step further. We have an arrangement with the municipalities that they supply us their management reports so that we can analyze the trends down to the very basic issues that is emanating, not just what ends up in your audit report, but actually what happens from your management report. Now, every municipality has to supply us the audit improvement plan, and on a quarterly basis, the Provincial Treasury will, when they give us the action plan, we assess it to understand, are you addressing the root cause? And if you implement this action plan, will it result in a resolution of the finding? So we do that first assessment and we give responses back to the municipality. The next assessment we do is on a quarterly basis. We check in with the municipality. How far are you with the actions that you have indicated that you are going to do? And again, on a quarterly basis, when we get the responses back from the municipalities, we collate it for the Western Cape. We inform our National Treasury colleagues on the implementation of the action plans. And then what we also have is further mechanisms within the Provincial Treasury, both on our budget office, on our expenditure management office, on our supply chain office, as well as on our accounting office. We have annual assessments where I'm sure you heard of the term of MGRO, where we give them pertinent questions that they need to respond to, and we make an actual assessment of the financial management capability, maturity of that municipality. Again, these action plans are meant to address what the AG has identified. Now, the MGRO doesn't just deal with what the AG has identified, because the AG, obviously, when they look at their methodology, they cannot test every single transaction. Now, the MGRO that the Provincial Treasury, together with Department of Local Government, has implemented goes beyond just audit outcomes. It will go to what's happening in your CFO office, what's happening in your BTO office, what's happening across your assurance functions, what happens in supply chain, how do you deal with budgets, how do you deal with financial management. And on that basis, you would see across the country, in the Western Cape, we've received 18 clean audits. We've received an additional 9 unqualified with findings. That is a whopping 27 out of 30. Now, this is a constant approach and process that happens on a monthly basis. In fact, the assessment on the IYM, the financial side and the non-financial indicators almost ensures that the implementation plan provided by the municipality is and must consistently be implemented by the municipality. Then, as it relates to the question regarding the challenges or risks that have been identified in supply chain management, Chairperson and members on this platform, supply chain is a minefield. In my view, supply chain is an art. It's not necessarily a science, because every single case has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. Now, you cannot make what National Treasury does. They send or they provide a law or a regulation that doesn't favor any single municipality. They write a standard law that must be implemented across the country. There is no favoritism or partial looking at what happens in a rural municipality versus what happens in a metro versus what happens in a district. They all have to apply exactly the same law. So to your question of local content, if I can use an example, let's say, for instance, CKD is considered a rural municipality. Now, on the assurance side, you would rather have an audit committee member, or an audit committee member would rather be a member in a metro closer to the urban side than to a central, to a rural side, because the distance, the traveling, unless it's virtual, it costs much more for that audit committee member. Similarly with supply chain, unless within that district, local content is easily and readily identifiable or available, when the laws is currently written that all supply chain must go on open bidding. It must at the minimum go onto the central supplier database of National Treasury. And then if you're working in the Western Cape, then it must be on the Western Cape Supplier Evidence Bank. And then you could also have your municipal supply chain list. Now, local content, if you are in Metro, in Cape Town, you could probably get a whole lot of companies that can supply you the commodities that is local content designated. If you go to CKD, you have to travel 600 kilometers, and that cost factor will be added to the municipality when they already don't have that amount of money in their coffers, like a Metro or a high category municipality closer like your Stellenbosch and your Saldanha. So local content, whilst it's an imperative of the country, it will cost municipalities much more. In terms of the consultants, in terms of you do acknowledge that it's not an evil that we need to get rid of. However, also indicating certain functions for the municipality. Now, the municipality is an organization, an institution that is completely autonomous. It does not require provincial treasury approval for the appointment of consultants. However, we do monitor the nature of consultants that's implemented at municipalities, and at times, provincial treasury has a framework contract, which is a panel of experts where we have vetted consultants and the cost that they charge and the nature of work that they can do. So municipalities, when they do find themselves in a difficult situation, they could contact the municipality to give them a list of pre-authorized consultants, because we have already vetted the work that they do, the nature of the work, and the cost that they charge. And obviously, it's not a given that any of these consultants will be utilized, because at the time of accessing the framework agreement or framework contract, every instance must still be done competitively. It's just we are trying to speed up the supply chain process. as it relates to the management of consultants. Then as it relates to audit fees, and I hope I'm still on track, Chairperson, as it relates to audit fees, the Provincial Treasury monitors this very, very closely, and together with the Auditor General, the Auditor General is kept on a very, very short leash in terms of audit costs. We have seen a significant improvement in the cost of audit fees, especially when the country went into lockdown. So we've seen a significant drop in the audit fees, and that's because the Auditor General has also re-engineered the way that they do audits. Now, I hear the issue about the exorbitance of the audit costs. However, please understand, members, that you cannot compare the cost of the auditors with the cost of private sector auditors, because in private sector, the goal is the bottom line, and the goal is to is basically to get an unqualified audit. The Auditor General's mandate in terms of the Constitution and in terms of the Public Audit Act, the Auditor General has a much bigger mandate because we are dealing with public funds. The first thing is that the Auditor General has to give an opinion on the financial statements. The second thing is the Auditor General has to give a view on the predetermined objectives. The third thing is the Auditor General must give a view on compliance with laws and regulations. And then the fourth thing is the Auditor General must give a view on the implementation of internal controls, which then latches onto a further point that I think it was Member van der Westhuizen made. Member van der Westhuizen spoke about, can we trust what is in the financial statements? Now, the financial statements is an assertion by management that says, this is my financial statements for the year. When they get an unqualified audit, the Auditor General is stating that there are no material inconsistencies or there are no material findings in these financial statements, and you can trust the financial numbers. What that means is when you see a debtor's number in the financial statements with an unqualified audit, you almost have a guarantee that the municipality has correctly assessed the validity of the debtors, has assessed the amount of the debtors, and has also assessed whether or not it has been collectible. And for that reason, if you just think about the debtors number, Honourable van der Westhuizen, where a municipality says 96% is going to be collected, but only 80% is recovered, that is a very technical and highly sophisticated calculation that the municipality must do, and that the Auditor General must check so that the information put out by the municipality can be trusted. And it's for that reason that sometimes the consultants' costs are quite extensive, because when you consider your debtors amount in your financial statements, it is one of the key numbers that must be addressed and assessed. And the municipality also have to consider the credit policy, so that if anything changes in terms of the collectability of the rand value of the debts outstanding, the credit policy must be addressed and assessed by the municipality. I think that speaks to both the audit fees as well as the municipal debt that was asked by Member van der Westhuizen. Then, as it relates to the role of SALGA, I will offer either an opportunity or any members of SALGA that could be in the meeting, but then just also to reflect on the audit fees. Member America, I can tell you that on an annual basis, we supply the municipalities with not just their own audit fee, we also supply them with what's happening across the 30 municipalities, because that information is accessible to the Western Cape government. What municipalities must do is manage that audit fee in the Audit Steering Committee meeting. This is probably the most important meetings that can happen between the Auditor General and the municipalities, and a Provincial Treasury together with the Department of Local Government continuously reminds the municipalities that when it comes to audit fees, it is an engagement between the municipality and the Auditor General. And at the highest level of that organization, meaning the MM together with the CFO, they are the only ones that can manage that audit fee. Obviously, it goes without saying that the audit fee will be reduced if the internal controls at the municipality is the best type of internal controls that you have. And I would ask Mr. van der Werven if he wants to add anything more to the audit fees. Then as it relates to ethical conduct, can there be a program? Member van der Westhuizen, in government, we are very administratively driven, and there must be laws and regulations, policies, procedures, and programs that's implemented. So yes, there is a program for ethical leadership within public sector. As to your question of can it be taught, it's the same as, is a leader born or is a leader made? It goes back to nature versus nurture, but that is why there are specific programs that are in place to ensure that somebody cannot say, I didn't know. At a minimum, through the municipal minimum competencies, ethics is covered, at least for the Section 56 employees, or for those employees that must go through the minimum competencies, it is a mandatory. And then for the CFOs, who has to be affiliated to some kind of organization, be it SAICA, or be it INFO, or be it SIGFARO, there's also the code of conduct and their professional standards that they need to be complying with. And if that doesn't happen, there's also a case of financial misconduct that can be taken out against any of the officials that is responsible for the financial statements. And then the last question, I think, if you will allow me, was in relation to the infrastructure. Now, the Auditor General, again, they have given a view on the assets of the municipalities, and no municipality, except for where there's been a disclaimer or adverse opinion, no significant issues has been raised on infrastructure. Now, if you think about it, infrastructure deals with water provision, electricity provision, and sewage. And if you go to the indicators that is in a municipality, you will also understand that in the Western Cape has of the highest levels of service delivery in the country. And the quickest way to check that, if you open the tap and water comes out, okay, then infrastructure is in place. As for the maintenance and repairs, there is a National Treasury ratio where municipalities must at a minimum spend 8% of their budget on repairs and maintenance. And this is something that's constantly monitored through the IYMs of the Provincial Treasury, through the budget assessment process of the Provincial Treasury. And in your last question, you asked the issue about municipalities that must budget for a deficit. Let me say, in this year, no municipality could budget for a deficit, and where budget was not tabled, we had our Provincial Treasury colleagues actually have an intervention in those municipalities so that no money gets spent against a budget that hasn't been approved. And definitely one of the key drivers that we try and address is that no single budget can go into a deficit. The problem that we are dealing with, and this is important to understand, is that budgets are not just cash-based. Sometimes what can happen is there are accounting numbers that informs those budgets. A simple example would be depreciation of motor vehicles, or depreciation of buildings, or depreciation even of your infrastructure. And sometimes that depreciation is a best estimate. And where you have unplanned bursts of pipes, where you have unplanned breakdown of bridges, it is funding money that hasn't previously been planned for that eats into the budget. But at year end, the municipality may go into what we call unauthorized expenditure because of accounting estimates. National Treasury has acknowledged that accounting estimates could put budgets into deficits, and that is why they've allowed the mechanism of adjustment budgets at year end, and within the period between July and the end of August, municipalities still have the opportunity to address the unauthorized expenditure because of estimations. Member Chairperson America, I hope that that has responded to at least the questions expected of Treasury to respond, and I will hand back to my colleague Ida for any other questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hardin. In an unscripted way, you have done extremely well. You've answered, to my mind, all the questions as extensively as you possibly can. Thank you, sir. I have just one follow-up question, but I'll ask it after. Maybe I should ask the follow-up question, and then you can respond, and then I think that may be the end of Treasury's response. Insofar as you have highlighted the elements of or the categories which eventually determine the audit fees, and I fully agree with you. They are extensive in terms of legislation, and I also agree that fees are determined by the amount of work that needs to be done, and if there are adequate internal controls, then certainly less work, audit work needs to be performed. Speaking about internal controls, and you mentioned that one element where the auditor will express a view in terms of the internal controls that exist, and the deficiencies of those internal controls are often then contained within the management report, and management need to address those deficiencies. The absence of strong audit committees in municipalities, particularly in rural areas, because most of our municipalities are located in the rural areas, often sort of impact upon the implementation of strong internal controls. And in your view, Mr. Hardin, those municipalities where we have not so adequate audit outcomes, is there a direct relationship between the strength of the internal controls and those deficiencies being addressed, and vis-a-vis the absence of strong sort of public accounts committees and internal control and audit committees? Thank you, sir.
Okay, Chairperson, I'm going to try to answer your question. I think the question is there a direct correlation between strong oversight bodies and strong assurance functions in a municipality vis-a-vis the internal controls that is implemented? I would say 100% yes, there is a direct relationship. Now, if you look at the assurance functions that happens in a municipality, you have the audit committees, you have the internal auditors, you have the risk management practices. And if any of those three things are absent, there is going to be a lapse in internal control. But also understand that the highest authority in a municipality from a assurance that supports the council is the audit committee. Now, your audit committees at mandatory have to meet 4 times a year. And you can imagine if an audit committee meets for a day, the information that is placed in front of them, that is probably crucial to understanding what happens in the audit committee, what happens in the municipalities. So unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know. So it is important and it's imperative that the CFO, together with the municipal manager, prepares the audit committee packs. What Provincial Treasury does together with the National Treasury, there is what is called the Audit Committee Public Sector Forum. We try to ensure that anybody that needs to be on an or that applies to be on an audit committee is at least educated on the least and the minimum requirements of what they need to look at. Obviously, the audit committee can, like the Auditor General, ask for any document in the municipality. So it is Provincial Treasury's view that the more we inform audit committees of what is available, the more we inform them in terms of the emigro analysis, the analysis made by the IPS squared, which is done by the Department of Local Government, as well as the Department of Environmental Affairs. The more we supply the assurance function, the assurance providers at the municipality with these detailed reports. Obviously, with every municipality, there is a dedicated audit committee, and the provincial treasury or DLG will never have enough manpower. So it helps us to embolden and to inform the audit committees of what is available and what are the key things that they need to look at. And yes, it is a constant improvement exercise, because on an annual basis, National Treasury would either issue guidelines or in terms of risk management, or what the function of internal audit is vis-a-vis what the types of internal controls needs to be, as well as very pertinent circulars that deals with irregular, fruitless and wasteful and unauthorized, and Provincial Treasury and the Department of Local Government. We take it upon ourselves not just to send these emails to prospective audit committees and municipalities. We actually have workshops with the municipalities so that they understand and that they know that we know what must be done. So that when we do check up, it's not a case of we didn't know, it's a case of Provincial Treasury and DLG has given us the guidance through the year, and definitely at year end, they will assess whether or not we do it. My basic principle with this department, with the Provincial Treasury, is anything that is not monitored will fall by the wayside. And that is the same for performance indicators, and that is why it is critical to have targets in place. Similarly with audit committees, we will indicate if there's changes in the audit committee charter that needs to happen, or if there's anything in the work that we say, across all municipalities, audit committees, please look at this. Now, there is one area that I think that the audit committees may need to get more education regarding supply chain. And I think in one of our assurance, we have Provincial Treasury has two types of forums. The next forum is happening in September the 8th, I think. It is where we have a Chief Risk Officer Forum, as well as the Chief Audit Executive Forum. And in these forums, we inform the members of audit committees and the members of the risk offices and the enterprise risk management of what is the minimum and the necessary controls and functions and roles and responsibilities that they must ensure implement. And then lastly, these members also have an opportunity to raise any of the concerns with the Provincial Treasury with hopefully an adequate turnaround time, so that they cannot say that there was never an opportunity to request some guidance. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aldrin, for those insights. It's really reassuring and that adequate monitoring is taking place, and assistance, of course, and from your side. I hand over back to Ms. Barnett. If there's anything that you'd like to sweep, you may do so.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. There's just one or two things that I wish to add, just in terms of Member van der Westhuizen, specifically around the powers and functions of the executive mayors. Now, just to indicate that it's not only necessarily for the executive mayors, but also for the MACO members or even for councillors. Now, the Code of Conduct for councillors, as well as various pieces of legislation, I think the most important one is the MFMA and the Structures Act, guides specifically where are the boundaries where being a councillor starts and stops and being an official starts and stops. And the legislation sets that out quite clearly. But I think in reality, and I think that's what the Honourable Member was indicating, is that from time to time, as a department, we do get indications from municipalities that those lines have become slightly blurred, and that there is movement from the one side to the other side in various areas where there may be a more liberal interpretation of what the functions may include. And I think what is important just to say is that when we receive, as a department, received complaints of that nature, then it's one of our responsibilities to look into that and to guide and advise and to support the municipality to deal with it in terms of the Code of Conduct, but also in terms of the code of conduct for officials. So yes, indeed, when it happens and is brought to our attention as a department, we have responsibility in terms of our own oversight to deal with it in terms of the legislation that makes provision for it. Then just in terms of the ethics and the training program, I was listening careful to Member van der Westhuizen about the ethics and he used an Afrikaans expression. And in actual fact, what it's true is that ethics is potentially something that you have either inside of you. It's something that I think as adults, it's not something that we easily learn. But what we have seen is, honourable members, we have spent a lot of time in the last 2 years, and that's specifically under the leadership of our HOD, to spend time on the personal growth and development of our councillors, specifically around not only ethics, but who am I as an individual representing my community and my area, and what type of a responsibility does that place on me as a person? So ethics is one side of it, but how do I make sure that the reason why you voted me into council, I'm going to carry that through? And we've done that with various partners, and I must say that the feedback that we received from the councillors was very positive. It's more than a training program. It actually became personal opportunities for growth and development of myself as an individual, of which ethics and morality is one of the facets that we deal with. We also deal with other matters in this. And just to indicate also, I have mentioned it on this platform before, but we are really critically looking, and now I'm also connecting with the chairperson's question around SALGA and ethical leadership. We are really connecting very strongly with the program that we are doing for the new councillors that will be elected in the upcoming local government elections. We always do extensive training, but what we are doing this time around is we really had a critical look at the programs that we did before, and also some of the gains and the successes achieved in the later parts of how we changed our strategies in terms of training to make it more practical, and also to focus a little bit more on matters like ethics. And we've gone to a great extent that working with our partners, we have actually done a review of our training, and we are currently busy preparing our training material for after the local government elections for the incoming councillors. And we are working very closely with SALGA in that regard. They are a partner, and ethical leadership is one of the themes that will run a golden thread through this training opportunities. Just to close on the training opportunities, Chairperson, by saying, Honourable Chair, that this training is both accredited. So at the end of the 5 years, you will have the opportunity to have progressed through to a postgraduate qualification, or it's only for you to attend, and that's how it will be set up. Because we also very strongly not only want to work on your personal development, but also for those councillors that wish to give them an accredited training, educational opportunity while they are councillors, to further also their educational and their background and also their qualifications. Then the last question, Honourable Chairperson, that I will just briefly refer to was by Honourable Member Marais. And I think it's important just to highlight two things in terms of oversight. So when we speak about oversight specifically for a municipality, we have to look at two angles. The first one is the oversight responsibility of a council itself, and I will touch on that one now. And the second one is the oversight responsibility of the provincial government, of which of the two key departments are present here today. So if we look at the Constitution, Section 151 says very clearly that the executive and legislative authority of a municipality is vested in the council. So that responsibility of oversight is first and foremost then given to the council, and then further emphasized in other pieces of the Constitution, as well as the Structures Act, as well as the MFMA. If we just, for instance, look at the responsibility of passing a budget. So what then further happens is, and my colleague from Treasury very eloquently also referred to that, there are then committees established in the municipality that takes responsibility through delegations for specific areas, of which the MPAC is one. So that is the Council's oversight responsibility. Secondary to that, the provincial government also has a very specific responsibility to both monitor and support municipalities. And when specific obligations are not fulfilled, then the provincial government has, the executive has the authority to intervene or take action in that municipality. So in terms of monitoring, how is it going in the municipality? Are they experiencing challenges? Is it going well or not so well, or where do they need help? We utilize Section 155 of the Constitution. We provide then support, like I provided feedback in the presentation, 154 of the Constitution, and then very importantly, when we have to intervene, that happens in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution, and there are very specific provisions, but also qualifying criteria that we have to take into consideration when these obligations are not fulfilled. So those are the two areas of oversight, Chairperson, that I just wanted to reflect on based on Honourable Member Marais' question. Chair, I think we have covered all the questions. If there are any follow-ups, Chair, then we're welcome to assist.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. May I use this opportunity to ask if Gavin or any member of his team would like to make pass a comment or make an input. I'd like to provide that opportunity now before we move on to the closing remarks or members having any further questions. I see Honourable Marais is leaving now. Just wanted to mention to him that we have some of the smartest people in the provincial parliament and not in the national parliament of this particular party that I represent. And but unfortunately he's leaving now. Gavin, if you wish to make a remark or any member of your team, you're welcome to do so now or not. Mr. Vimbeli, I see you've raised your hand. I recognize you. If you wish to just, proceed.
Okay, morning, Chairperson and all the members. I just wanted to inform you, Gavin has left the meeting, so we have nothing on our side. I was just observing the meeting.
Thank you so much, Ms. Vimbeli. Thank you. Members, are there any final questions you'd like to pose for clarity or new questions before I wrap up?
No, Chair, there's not any questions.
Thank you so much. From my Honourable Van der Westhuizen, is that you?
Yes, sorry, Chair. I was on my phone and not able to raise my hand.
Okay. So you agree? Okay. Okay. From my side, thank you so much. From my side, let me thank Ms. Barnett and your team, the department, and Mr. Harding and your team for your extensive response to the members' questions. And I think we traverse quite a broad range of matters that are of importance to us in exercising our oversight role. And it provided us with a deeper insight also in terms of what your respective departments are doing to address the concerns and the shortcomings that emanated from the audit outcomes. And we are extremely grateful for the work that you're doing, and it is reflected in the audit outcomes of the majority of our municipalities. And we are going to enter into, we're going to have elections soon, and I hope, and I think it's a constant concern and matter that's being raised by Mr. Pauls and his colleagues about having the right people in the right positions, and as our communities gather and elect new councils, that they will make sure that we have the correct political leadership that can provide the kind of stability and the kind of leadership to our councils and to our communities so that we can improve services to our people. And we are extremely indebted and grateful for the support that the department and Treasury provides to municipalities to ensure that, as Mr. Hardin was saying, that if you open the tap, then there's water coming out there, and we're extremely grateful. So on that note, I would like to again wish our express our gratitude also to the Auditor General's Office for the role that they play in making sure that there's compliance with legislation, there is ethical leadership also that is being displayed and in our municipalities, that is good governance in our municipalities. And without the role of all these moving parts that's constantly evolving, we cannot achieve the objectives that we want to have, that we set for ourselves. And from the committee side, we cannot thank you more for the role that you play, and we are extremely grateful for the manner in which you engage with this committee and the way you respond to our questions. And with that said, if there's any closing remarks, Ms. Barnett, you'd like to make, you're welcome to do so.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, members. No, thank you. I think we just want to thank you for your time and also the opportunity to reflect with you on the work that we are doing, and also for your feedback. I will definitely give that feedback also to our HOD and Minister. Thank you so much, Honourable Chairperson.
Ms. Hardin, is there anything closing you would like to say?
Honourable Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I hope that we've been able to address all of your concerns. And then should you require anything more from either the DLG or the Provincial Treasury, we are public servants trying to implement what EDA calls servant leadership, and you know that you have a partner in both departments to help keep our municipalities afloat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barnett and Mr. Hardin. We are much appreciated. The committee will continue because we have some other administrative matters that we need to attend to. The department, AG, and the Treasury's officials are welcome to leave the meeting, and the members will stay behind, and we'll just wrap up our administration. Thank you once again, and have a lovely day. And so back to us. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, members, for the engagement that you had with the department. I think it was very fruitful, and much of the we have a better understanding also now what the Department of Treasury is doing to ensure that we continue to be the beacon of hope for good governance and service delivery in the country vis-a-vis, other provinces, but we don't compare ourselves to other provinces. We compare ourselves to the quality of services we render to our people, and that can be achieved. And there's a causal link between good governance, service delivery, good financial management, and ethical leadership. Johan, Kutsia, I call upon you to were we going to do the minutes first, or were we going to do resolutions? I think we should do resolutions first. and then we do minutes afterwards, right?
In your answer.
Okay, let's do resolutions first, colleagues. And it's regrettable that Honourable Murray left the meeting, and maybe could possibly have contributed to resolutions, but we never know why people leave meetings, because they may have other engagements also. Okay, colleagues. Let me kick off with the department in terms of section 131. A report needs to be sort of compiled, which provides the state of municipalities within the province, and that report is then submitted to Cabinet. And maybe we could get the department to provide us a copy of that report, so we can engage it on our own. And if we think there's a need to call them back to brief us more on the report or the contents of it, then we may do so. And perhaps if, because it can't be, I don't know if it's a confidential document or not, but we can request that report. I don't know how you feel about that, colleagues.
Great.
Then secondly, with regard to the audit opinion, that audit opinion was provided to, it was requested by Cabinet, it was provided to Cabinet. I don't know. I have a copy of the audit opinion that was provided to me via by the administration, no, not by the administration, by Luke in particular. So I can circulate that audit opinion to members, and then because it really poses a problem in terms of our oversight on municipalities, and I don't think that we can compel municipalities to account to us per se, but via the department we can get that sort of answers that we wish to get from municipalities. But the department and the minister is answerable to us and not municipalities per se. But I'll distribute that report, and I got it last night, yesterday I got it, and I'll send it on to members. Okay, Honourable van der Westhuizen is now recognizing.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, perhaps on that point, Ms. Barnard didn't respond to a question regarding the legal opinion recently obtained by province, and I fully respect the fact that she wanted to refer this rather to a head of department. And I want to propose that as a resolution, we pose as a committee a question regarding the legal opinion regarding the oversight role of provinces over local municipalities, and on the obligation by municipalities to provide certain information to provinces. And so that's my first resolution, that we get more information regarding that legal opinion. And the second one is related to that, and how does this legal opinion then affect the work and or the relations between local governments and the provincial administration? That is the first one. Shall I pause?
No, you can proceed if you wish to.
Thank you, Chair. I mentioned that one first because it related to your input, but perhaps for good order, we may be able, in terms of the minutes, change the order. I first want to say thank you to the department and compliment the officials on the quality of the answers provided to our questions today. You also referred to that, Chair, and I really want to endorse it, and I want to make it a formal resolution.
No, yeah, for sure. I was going to mention that inclusive of Treasury, of course.
Yes, thank you very much. And then also, Chair, if we could then also compliment the department on the good audit results when compared to the national performance of municipalities in terms of audit outcomes.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, yes, yes, go ahead, Andricus.
Yes, Chair, I was just wondering for your consideration whether we should not express our concern about critical positions being vacant at Kannaland municipality. I think without us obviously then interfering, but it was disconcerting for me to learn that, for example, the technical director position is vacant. On our oversight visit, we met the previous incumbent then, and you know, a technical director for me is one of the posts which by far should not be related to any political party, etc. You know, you're a good manager or you're a good technical director, irrespective of your political convictions or anything like that. At that point in time, I was pleasantly surprised by how soon that individual found his feet in that municipality, and it's a real concern to me, and I personally think a real loss to Kannaland to have lost somebody that really cared so much for the infrastructure and particularly the water challenges, etc., which was experienced in Kannaland. Also, I would like us to also in future ask questions regarding the suspension of senior managers in municipalities. It really is a very unfortunate situation, sometimes necessary, but I think it's important that such cases be dealt with the greatest urgency possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Andricus, while you're at it, you mentioned about the question that you posed about the executive authority of the executive mayor vis-a-vis their inability in terms of legislation to interfere in the administration. Why can you? Is there a need for us to formulate a resolution around that for further information or whatever?
I'm so grateful. Thank you, Chair. Yes, absolutely. Ms. Barnard said, you know, in their mind, there's a very clear picture, and you know, they believe that the legislation is quite clear. But I have found in practice, Chair, that if you're an executive mayor, unfortunately, you sometimes need to issue orders. Now, we all know the way in which councillors and mayoral committee members get by this is to ask officials to do something. They don't order them to do things. But I mean, between asking and ordering, let's say, for example, you're the speaker and you know that the agenda must go out at least 72 hours before, and you see that, you know, the agenda, there's a problem with the printing division in the municipality. Then as a speaker that's responsible for the good order, you must interfere and you must, you know, put some pressure on officials and say you can't go home at 4 o'clock. Those documents need to be, you know, sent off today. And what do? You know, if you're responsible, like an executive mayor, like a speaker, like a member of the mayoral committee for certain functions within the municipality, and there's an interpretation that you may not order officials to do certain things because that would be seen as interference. So please, I'm so grateful you're raising this, because the answer, unfortunately, did not, in this case, provide me with the guidance that I believe I would like to have, but that I almost want to say hundreds of incoming councillors will soon require to have. So if I could phrase that, we perhaps get in writing the department's view of what is deemed to be allowable for full-time councillors, part-time councillors, in terms of those functions for which they are responsible within a municipality, and what functions would then be deemed as ultra-virus or interference or transgressing the limitations in law put on public representatives. Thank you for raising that.
Fantastic. Thank you for formulating it so nicely, Andrikus. Honourable Maseko, you have raised your hand earlier.
Oh, I'm okay, Chair. Thanks.
Okay. Johan Vermeulen, I see you raised your hand for input, please. I recognize you.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Just from a procedural aspect, I'm not sure if it's going to help, but I'll just put it out there. I think Member van der Westhuizen made the resolution for the legal opinion to go to the department for their input, and I think that's great. It'll be interesting to hear what they say. But what I actually want to mention is that the Committee on Local Government, Chairperson, has always had the function actually to oversee the department. The Department of Local Government. I think in the past, and I'm not talking about these members, there's been some confusion around that. And procedurally, I think when a committee interacts with a municipality itself, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But the angle procedurally, Chairperson, should always just be that the committee wants to interact to get the necessary information for the committee to gauge or to understand whether the department is doing its function or its role, which is to support, to be supportive of that municipality. And I think if the committee always takes in its correspondence and its letters that approach, I think the committee can get very far. Because if a municipality wants to be difficult or obstinate, I think it is possible to get their backs up, if you use the wrong wording in the letters. If you write a letter and say, look, we're coming to do oversight, which is not the case necessarily. You just change the wording because you want to see and you want to get the information to oversee the department to make sure that they are providing the necessary assistance and I can't remember the word now, but I think you understand what I'm saying, Chip. Yeah, I just think that is the angle. And just also as an as part of the background here, we used to have a rule in our standing rules that was incorrect, because that rule used to be called the I can't remember it. It referred to the Standing Committee on Local Government and Municipal Oversight, which was wrong. And that rule was a few years ago already. There was already legal opinion then, was already removed by that time. Because the documents, Chairperson, that the Local Government Acts refer to and say that these documents must be referred to Provincial Parliament. For example, these municipalities reports that underperform. Even those documents must be looked at by the committee in light of how is the department supporting these municipalities and doing their job now. So it comes back to the committee doing their oversight. And I'm saying this, Chairperson, out of a legal opinion that I've read and that is available of, I think, a few years ago already. So that's just a little bit of procedural background. I'm not sure if it's helping, but I've just decided maybe it can help, and I'd like to mention that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks a lot, Johan. It helps a lot. I think that from a committee's point of view, based on the manner in which we have done oversight in LOCO, we've always had that particular approach. But you're correct, is that it's the manner in which we frame our engagement with municipalities, not to get it back up. We don't have it with rural municipalities that are governed by the DA, but mostly where there are coalitions and governments that are not governed by us. But in terms of the legal opinion that you referred to, Johan Kutsia, went through the archives and got me that legal opinion, and it was in 2004 already, a while ago, and it confirms exactly what you're saying, and even the current legal opinion. So nothing has changed really in terms of the role that we, that we can play. And I think it emerges with a particular political nuance that emanated in the sixth parliament in terms of the workings within the city of council from an ex-councillor who served there over time. But be that as it may, thank you for making us alive to that, and we will certainly take it to heart and try to make it compliant in terms of not to be seen to be interfering in the affairs of specific municipalities. So, colleagues, Johan could say those are the resolutions that I'm sure you have captured all of those.
That's correct, Chairperson. That last one, once I've done it, I'll just submit it to Mr. van der Westhuizen again, just to see if I captured it correctly. We're ready to go over to the minutes.
Thank you. I'm in your hands, Johan. If you can flag the minutes, there's just one set of minutes that we need to adopt, and then we can call it a day. Yeah?
I'm just looking for it, Chair. Visible, Chair?
Yes, it's visible, but can you just enlarge it a little?
Here we go.
Okay, there's page 1, attendance. Continue. Right, there we go. Page 2. It's basically just a briefing by the Auditor General and the audit outcomes. Those are the resolutions. Okay. And then that's it. Any additions or questions with regard to those minutes? It's nothing more to it. Colleagues, can I have a mover to adopt the minutes?
Yes, Chair, I propose that we adopt.
Honourable Masika, thank you very much. Seconded by Honourable van der Westhuizen. That concludes the official agenda for today. Johan, just before we close the meeting, can you just enlighten me on the communication you sent to me regarding Honourable Makamba Boyka? To send an apology?
Yes, she did send, or her office sent an apology to Nomfundo, which she then just forwarded to me, and she instructed them that they must submit the apology to me as well. So we did receive an apology from her office.
Thank you so much. Yes. Can the minutes reflect that, Johan, please?
I'll reflect that in the minute, Chair.
Okay, good. Thank you. So colleagues, thank you so much. Johan, is there anything else you want to say?
Chairperson, yes, just one thing. The Select Committee on Cooperative Governance is sitting this afternoon on the C list for the Municipal Systems Amendment Bill. So once they've adopted it today, I will then, when they send it to us, I will distribute it to the members, and pending on when they want to adopt the final mandate, I will set up a meeting for us to consider our final mandate report then. So it might not be in our normal time slot, but I'll have a look in terms of the parliamentary program where there's an opening.
Thank you, Anne. Thanks a lot. Much appreciated. So with that, colleagues, yeah.
Apologies. There's just one more thing. I've sent you an email yesterday regarding that local government equity share workshop. I will forward it to the members as well. And then if they want to attend it via Zoom, I've got all the links are all on there. They're more than welcome to attend.
Yeah, please do. So it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, and it's hosted by Provincial, National Treasury, I think, or National Committee of Finance.
That's correct, yeah. So thank you, Anne. You can do that if members are available, then certainly they can log in. Colleagues, allow me to express my gratitude and thanks to Mfundu, Candice, Siraj, and to you, Johan Vermeulen, for your guidance and assistance and availability. Much appreciated. To Johan Kutsi, of course, for your putting everything together and holding everything together. And to my colleagues on the committee, Andrikus and Claudie, thank you. You're the mainstay. Without you, we cannot do what we're doing. And it is, it's a collective effort from all of us who are present here in this meeting at this hour. And have a lovely day. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Enjoy your day further.